The nation is focused on the pandemic. A judge is debating a request by the Justice Department to drop charges against retired General Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor who President Trump fired in 2017 for lying about his foreign contacts. Now, two Republican senators have released a list of Obama administration officials who might have known about the intelligence on Flynn. It's unclear from what they released. The president is making some outrageous accusations against President Obama with zero evidence whatsoever. But joining me now to talk about this and much more, Republican Senator from Wisconsin, Ron Johnson. Senator, thanks for joining us. I hope you're well and healthy. I want to have you take a look at these images that we're seeing out of Wisconsin with residents flooding bars after the stay-at-home order was overturned. I think everyone agrees we need to find a way for the country to reopen and stop the economic suffering. But health experts say that this must be done in a way that keeps people safe and ultimately prevents potentially more death and health issues and more economic suffering. What do you think when you see these packed bars in violation of CDC guidelines in your home state?
Well, I certainly see a small subset of Wisconsinites celebrating a little freedom. We've all been pent up, we've all been frustrated, and so I think they took that occasion. But what I see in Wisconsin is primarily people being very responsible, wearing masks in grocery stores, maintaining social distancing, taking this disease as seriously as it really needs to be taken. So, yeah, I mean, I realize those are images that they concern probably all of us. But again, we do need to move to keep as much of our economy open as possible, but open it up safely and responsibly.
I want to talk about inspectors general before we get to the unmasking memo. When President Obama was in office, you and I would talk a lot about inspectors general. President Trump has now gotten rid of 4 inspectors general in one capacity or another, including on Friday the State Department inspector general. Senator Romney called this, quote, a threat to accountable democracy, and said it, quote, chills the independence essential to their purpose. What's your response? I remember you being a real advocate for inspectors general, and independent inspectors general when President Obama was in office.
I am an advocate for inspector generals, and as the chairman of the General Oversight Committee of the United States Senate, we rely on an awful lot of their work. I think their independence needs to remain within their agencies. I'm very mindful of the fact that inspector generals don't work for Congress. They actually work for the administration. They're part of the executive branch, a different co-equal branch of government, and they work and serve the President of the United States. So I take a slightly different view in terms of what they should be independent from. They need to retain their independence within the agency so they can do inspections and investigations and provide that to their leadership, but primarily to the President. And so they serve at the President's will, and that is true of every inspector general. The other thing I found out, Jake, is that not all inspector generals are created equal. In our oversight work, we've already had 2 inspector generals resign because of some of the corruption we were uncovering. They left town ahead of the posse, so to speak. And so there are inspector generals that bring a political agenda, as well as those that do a phenomenal job. So they're not all equal, but in the end, they serve the pleasure of the president, and he's got the authority to hire and terminate.
Well, no one questions whether or not he has the authority to do so, but I really have to say I find it hard to believe that if President Obama had gotten rid of 4 inspectors general in 6 weeks, that you would have the same attitude that you seem to have right now.
Jake, again, 2 of those inspector generals under President Obama resigned under the scrutiny of my oversight. So again, I'm not going to speak specifically to this case. With quite honestly, with this inspector general, both Senator Grassley and I have had a real problem with his responsiveness to, in particular, one oversight request. I spoke with senior officials both in the White House and the State Department. I understand their reasoning. I don't know if they're going to provide a more robust rationale for why they do it, but I understand it. I don't disagree with it. I don't think anything this administration could say is going to satisfy some people. There'll still be people huffing and puffing and stomping their feet. But again, it is the president's decision whether or not to hire or terminate an inspector general.
Well, what was their reasoning? Because all the public knows is that this acting inspector general was investigating whether or not Secretary of State Pompeo was misusing a political appointee to do personal errands for him. That's according to Democratic aides on Capitol Hill. And then a senior administration official has said Pompeo asked Trump to remove this inspector general investigating him and President Trump did so. What are they telling you that makes you feel like you understand their reason?
I'm not going to discuss my private conversations with senior administration officials, but my guess is will all come out. Congress will be able to do whatever site it chooses to do. I'm sure the Democrats in the House will call in Mr. Linick, and he'll be able to testify, and he'll be able to tell his story. And my guess the administration will hopefully have an opportunity to tell their side of the story as well. I'm not crying big crocodile tears over this termination. Let's put it that way.
Let's talk about the list of Obama administration officials that you and Senator Grassley released this week. Just so our viewers understand, in 2016, the same time the U.S. was investigating Russian interference in the 2016 elections, several members of the Obama administration requested the name of a U.S. citizen who appeared in various intelligence reports. This person, in the cases that you've cited, turned out to be General Flynn. It's called unmasking. It's not uncommon. You praise the Director of National Intelligence for his transparency in declassifying these names. I'm wondering if you would be willing to also push for transparency when it comes to the transcripts of these calls, especially the calls between General Flynn and Russian Ambassador Kislyak, that seems to be part of this. Have you asked for those transcripts to be released as well?
Not yet, but we just really began our investigation in this particular aspect. Jake, this is one piece of the puzzle. I'm all for transparency. I think we way overclassify information, and as a result, there's all kinds of wrongdoing that can occur, and the American public never has a clue about what's happening. What I'm very heartened by is we finally have a logjam broken in terms of Congress getting information to conduct our oversight. You know, I've been on this case really in some way, shape, or form since March 2015 with the Hillary Clinton email scandal, which kind of morphed into the whole Russian collusion because the same cast of characters. But what just got released, because I had a staff member that went down into the secure area of the Senate, went through the FISA report with a fine-tooth comb, found 4 footnotes that completely rebutted the main text of the FISA report, showing that the FBI knew full well that the Russian disinformation was actually part of the Steele dossier, and the FBI knew it. The FBI knew full well that there was no collusion by the end of January, and yet they engineered through James Comey the appointment of a special counsel.
Right.
There is an awful lot of unanswered questions that need to be answered, and it's going to require transparency, yes. So I am all for transparency. I think the American people need to deserve and hear the full truth, and that's what I'm going to try and get.
Okay, so in addition to the transcripts, which hopefully you will push for to be released as well, I'm wondering, did you also ask to declassify the reports that justify why these unmaskings were requested and approved? Because just listing the names and the dates, and the fact that it resulted in the unmasking of General Flynn, we don't know what this is about. Obviously, he was an unregistered foreign agent for Turkey at the time. He later registered retroactively. So there are a whole bunch of questions that people might have had. Are you going to ask for that to be released as well, the justifications?
Yes, I want all this information to come out. One thing we have found out is that the FBI was ready to close the file on General Flynn on January 4th because they had found nothing. I mean, you mentioned all those other possibilities, but they didn't find anything wrong, so they're going to close the file until the 7th floor. That's James Comey's office, kind of called down, talked to Peter Strzok and said, hey, let's keep this open. Then they start talking about the Logan Act, and apparently President Obama was aware of this as well. So there are an awful lot of unanswered questions going back to the text that I continue to highlight, December 15, 2016, Strzok text page, think our sisters are leaking like mad, scorned, worried, and political, they're kicking into overdrive. Our committee conducted a study, showed 125 leaks in the first 126 days, 62 had to do with national security, that compares with 8 under the Obama administration. Something is amiss here, something was going wrong. I don't know exactly what happened, but we're getting a clearer picture of it. I think the chickens are coming home to roost, and hopefully myself, with hopefully other senators, Chuck Grassley has been a real partner, we'll get to the truth.
Look, obviously there are questions about FBI behavior. Peter Strzok was fired, Lisa Page resigned, etc. James Comey's no longer on the scene. But what exactly are you alleging by the Obama administration? Because I have yet to see any facts at all supporting this grand conspiracy that the Trump administration is pushing.
Well, Jake, it's because a lot of members of the media haven't been asking the questions, haven't been looking. You know, let's face it. There were selective leaks. They ramped up this entire Russian collusion hoax, and it was a hoax. And who's the recipients of these leaks? It was members of the media, about 18 different outlets. What I'd love to see is I would like to see members of the press actually start looking into all these leaks and how this story got spun up that resulted in a special counsel and put this country through about 3 years of a mini constitutional crisis. That's what I'd like to see.
Senator, it's not a hoax that the Russians attempted to interfere in the 2016 election.
Yes,
it's not a hoax.
They put Russian disinformation into the Steele dossier that was bought and paid for through cutouts for the Hillary Clinton campaign. That is what we found out, Jake. You got to look at the evidence. Look at those footnotes that we declassified.
I'm not disputing it. I'm not disputing it. The idea that we don't know what was in this Steele dossier, and how it got there and whether it was disinformation. But that's not what I'm talking about. You're suggesting that the entire Russia interference campaign was a hoax, and it was not. The Senate Intelligence Committee, run by a Republican, has concluded it was not. Every single inspector general of the intelligence community and of all these agencies has said it was not a hoax. The Russians were trying to interfere.
The hoax is that there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. The disinformation that Russia put into the 2016 campaign flowed through the Steele dossier and Hillary Clinton. No, I'm not denying that Russia tried to intervene in our election. They've been doing it probably since their founding. That's what they do. I'm chairman of the Foreign Senate.
Can we get back to unmasking, though?
Sure.
If we could get back to unmasking for a second. So unmasking, as you know, is not uncommon. It happens. I'm sure you also know that unmasking is actually increased under the Trump administration compared to the Obama administration. Again, there's nothing nefarious with it. People charged with national security want to see who individual Russians and others who are they're talking to unnamed Americans. They want to know who the Americans are. There's nothing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. If this is something that can be abused, something you're concerned about, are you using any of your oversight capacity to investigate what the Trump administration is doing as well? Almost 17,000 unmasking requests in 2018.
Right. I saw that report that under Obama's last couple of years it was under 10,000, and now the last couple of years it's been 16, 17,000, and that troubles me. So absolutely, I'm going to be looking into that. I want to know exactly what happened. Is it usual and customary for the inner circle within the White House to be requesting unmasking, or is this primarily done within the intelligence agencies? I want to get all that information. I want the American people to hear the full and complete truth.
The last thing is, sir, you have not made the allegation that the Trump administration is making, which is that President Obama committed crimes. You haven't said anything along those lines. But your work, your requesting of this information of the Director of National Intelligence, Rick Grinnell, and again, I'm pro-transparency, true, release it all. But your work is being cited as evidence for this crackpot conspiracy theory. Does that bother you?
Well, again, you keep calling it crackpot conspiracy theory. I'm just trying to find out what happened. What I do know, because we finally got these records out of the National Archives, what President Obama saw when he got those emails from Hillary Clinton was not HillaryClinton.Senate or StateDepartment.gov.classified. It was ClintonEmail.com. President Obama knew she was using a private server, and Section 793F, the section that I think Hillary Clinton violated, also includes knowledge of misuse of intelligence. So I've always thought that was one of the main reasons they covered up for Hillary Clinton and exonerated her.
Okay. All right, Senator Johnson, stay healthy. I really appreciate your time today.
Stay healthy. Take care.
Thank you, sir.